Thanks so much for coming. I'm so excited to see all of you here and to share some stories. So Agile at AppFolio, stories from the past 8 years. We're going to start, though, long ago. Actually, expertcity.com. Raise your hand if you've heard of expertcity.com. Raise your hand if you designed the logo for expertcity.com. These are the roots of Citrix, this very successful company that we're at, purchased expertcity.com. I don't remember what year it was a while ago, but I was part of the startup as well as some others in the room here, Darren, Jerry, Eric, called Expert City. So these are this upper left-hand corner is what Citrix Online looked like back in probably 1990, what year was that? 1999? 2000, yeah. And a very successful startup in Santa Barbara, makers of GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, very grateful and proud of the success of Expert City and Citrix Online. Proud to have been a part of that startup. So I was at 2 successful startups for the past 16 years. First one, Expert City, where we made meeting and webinar. And then the second one, lower right corner, that's what AppFolio looked like as a startup. And so we're a company that's 8 years old. That's a photo from an early tech retreat that we had. So very proud to have been a part of 2 successful startups. So I'll be focusing on AppFolio in this talk. We make software for different kinds of businesses, property management companies. We have AppFolio Property Manager. So if you own, for example, 1,000 apartments, you can use our software to manage every aspect of that. And we also make software for law firms with our MyCase software. So if you own a law firm, you can use our software to run your law firm. So in this talk, I'm going to share some stories, first about our days as a startup, and talk about some lessons learned from going through some change, people over processes and tools. I'm going to talk about a shift to some team building, and then some stories about Agile from the lens of Agile coaches. And so here's another early company picture at AppFolio when we were a startup, and I came to this company because I wanted to work with some of the developers that I had worked with in the past. And we were very small. We were in the incubator downtown that's across from the Home Improvement Center. This is a picture from one of the conference rooms there. And so we were all pretty much co-located, but we had 2 of our principal engineers were remote in Portland. So a little bit of a hybrid there. When we got into our first incubator space, one of the first things that we did was make the environment more of an open environment to promote collaboration amongst the teams. And so we were in a shared space, and you can see one of our team members there, Tushar, taking down those white walls so that team members could see each other and collaborate closer. So I was hired in as a Scrum Master, and that meant that I took a 3-day course, I can't remember at this point, with Ken Schwaber, one of the co-founders of Scrum, to learn all the basics of being a Scrum Master. I was a technical project manager in the past. But I learned through the guys on the right, 2 consultants from Pivotal Labs. They were with us as we built our first product. So for a long period of time, we had consultants from Pivotal engaged with us, and they really taught me, as somebody converting from a traditional project manager to a Scrum Master, what Agile was. We didn't use the words Agile. We were practicing XP and Scrum. They were making planning poker cards there. I also met with a local Scrum Master, I believe he was from Commission Junction, named Sam Edwards. And he told me that being a Scrum Master was a process of making yourself obsolete. Now there I have my Mac Plus computer. We played a prank on an engineer over the years and said, here's your new computer. This is on his first day. But that is my Mac Plus. It does still function. But anyway, Sam told me being a Scrum Master is a process of making yourself obsolete. And coming as a technical project manager, that really scared me. What did that mean? Was I going to be out of a job after a little while? I didn't quite know. And so I was like, okay, I'm up for this. I learned about Scrum. I'm interested in figuring out what it's all about. So I continued on. So again, we started with Scrum and XP. And So through pair programming, the XP and the technical practices were spread with the aid of our pivotal consultants. And so setting up our first continuous integration environment, here you can see Iric pairing with a consultant Mike, and just kind of learning by building the product together. And so we're not a case where we had a legacy of like a waterfall process converting over to Agile. We started with our first team and then grew from there. And so this was really great for me as a Scrum Master, because they handled all of the teaching TDD, XP, continuous integration. Having self-testing code and getting that feedback has been in our foundation now for 8 years. And through pair programming, that was the strategy for spreading the technical practices. So I facilitated Basic Scrum. Here's a retro photo of Basic Scrum. So back in that day, what that meant was I made sure that stand-ups happened. I connected in our remote engineers. Over the years, we've shifted. Using GoToMeeting with video completely changed everything. We used to connect in just with audio, but having remote participants up on a screen with a video really brings them in the room. So I did that, and I helped facilitate getting our backlogs together for the sprint planning that we had. And we worked in weekly cycles, 2-week cycles. At one point, we worked monthly cycles and back down to 2-week cycles, and there's even a hybrid today. And so that was one thing that I did. Since we were also a startup, we had a whole company view of obstacles. So also as a Scrum Master, I was facilities. Here was a Costco run that we did. I did some recruiting, set up recruiting events at UCSB. I had a past as a technical writer. So when you're a Scrum Master at a startup, one of the Scrum Master things that they say is you remove obstacles, but there were, you can draw the lines really broadly, and there's a lot of opportunity to help out. And so you really do whatever it takes. There was a power outage here. We were all working from the coffee shop one day, but then the CTO's VW bus broke down. I think this is really a good metaphor for being at a startup in general. You find the opportunity, you help each other out. You even take out the garbage if you have to, which I still do today if it needs to be done. So now I'm going to tell you a story about people over processes and tools. So the heartbeat of the Agile that we've had at AppFolio all throughout these years, even from the beginning, was retrospectives. Raise your hand if you guys do retrospectives regularly with your teams. Yeah, so it's like a great way to get people to talk about what's going on. How can we work better together going forward? What do we want to amplify and do more of, et cetera? This is a fishbowl retrospective that we did, looks like in our second office. So I always felt really strongly and ensured that teams would reflect every couple of weeks or at least every month, never past a month for reflecting. So I focused on retrospectives. One time, out of a retrospective, some teams had read about more traditional Scrum. Now, when we were a startup, again, I said we were engaged with Pivotal Labs, and we used a process that they advocated, which is a combo of XP and Scrum. But some engineers decided, well, we want to do some more traditional Scrum of the time and have these burn down charts. So we had estimated the user stories that we had in points. And there was a practice in Scrum that said, well, you can predict how many points are remaining each day. So really kind of focusing on the micro. And I was like, okay, we'll try it. It's a burn down chart experiment. And at the same time, we were also felt very strongly about pair programming, and it got to a point where, I felt like I really had to, if people weren't pairing, I really wanted to make sure that everybody had a pair, and it was almost kind of like really putting the process over the people. Why don't you have a pair? You should be pairing. We all know that you can find defects early if you pair. All these different benefits that we've come to know and experience. But sometimes it was like, okay, well, wasn't happening all the time, and used to try to in stand up, this very crude photo, but it's from the past, all right, who's pairing with whom? We had this magnet board just so people could know, but it felt like it was breaking down, and I went to this Agile Alliance convention in 2010 we went there to try to solve our pairing program. Why was it breaking down? We were really worried because we believed so strongly in the practice that, you know, we didn't want it to fail. So there was like fear there and other things. So how can we solve this pairing program? So I found one of the XP gurus in a hallway, JB Rainsberger, and I was telling him my problem, and I really wanted him to make it all better, right? And he's like, hey, have you ever read this book, Patrick Lencioni, 3 Signs of a Miserable Job? And I was like, no. And for some reason, you know, you go to a convention, you hear all these things, you get all these book recommendations. I picked up the book and I read it. And in the book, there's a story about a CEO that decides to, he purchases a restaurant and turn it around. And one of the things that he noticed after being in that environment is that there was a great deal of dissatisfaction among the people that work there. And, you know, I was reading the book and thinking to myself, you know, how are the people feeling? You know, what about team health? I felt like I had really contributed to a climate of unhappiness at my work, and I really, you know, wanted to get more information. And at the same time, you know, it was in the air. It was like in the system at the time. People started talking with each other, and a culture of feedback started to emerge in our environment of people talking with each other. We still do this all the time. We have one-on-one walks. Anybody walks together and gets feedback about how they're doing. We also started, this is 2010, an annual survey of our development team to tap into how people are doing, how people are feeling. And, you know, we continue to do this to this day. You know, what's going well for you? What could we do to improve our experience? And out of everything, what's the one thing that would have the biggest possible impact? And, you know, we decided then at the time that, hey, you know, we had been trying to mandate or force the pair programming. You know, it was, you know, we really learned a lesson that we had a group of engineers decided to, we decided to relax the pairing. When, you know, everybody is a professional, you can decide when you want to pair and when you don't want to pair. And it really kind of shifted the culture in a realization that, you know, here's the manifesto for Agile software development, to put the individuals and interactions over the perfect processes and tools. Mandating a process, you know, can backfire on you, and it's really about the people. And so some of the other stories that I'll share in this talk are about that shift, because I think it really has shaped, you know, this experience has really shaped the people-centered Agile that we have today at AppFolio. So it was a really hard time, but it was a really good turning point, I think, in how we move forward as a company. So again, we stopped forcing people to pair, and I, in my role, focused more on kind of team health instead of policing. If anybody, you know, I hear people talking about protecting processes and making sure people are doing things to the book and to the process, and that it's not an approach so I would focus more on team health. There's a concept called engineering. Joshua Kirievsky from Industrial Logic talks about it, promoting a safe work environment where people are comfortable to take risks, make mistakes and other things. We wanted something more like that focused on the people. So we hired great people, we needed to trust them. And so I decided, okay, maybe I should take that advice of that Scrum Master I met at that restaurant, start to kind of be a little more hands-off. So I started to deliberately kind of obsolete myself from a Scrum Master role and, you know, focus on increasing the positivity in the environment. And other people stepped up to keep things moving. But I always kept the retrospectives, you know, and always made sure that people continually reflect. We do these in different locations. Here's one at a local coffee shop. So I'm going to talk about some team building that emerged. So the next set of slides are from how we shifted kind of into a team building mode after that point in time. And again, I remember wanting to deliberately raise the positivity in the environment. And now even today, it's someone's job to organize regular monthly events where people get together and do other things. So for example, there's a coach named John Whitmore. He wrote a book called Coaching for Performance, and he talks about how a coach's job is to help teams gel as fast as possible. So we started, we'd look at things in a different way. This was an empty room that was next to our office that we had acquired, and we thought, well, maybe we can do something fun in there. So we set up a badminton net and had a doubles badminton tournament. You can see our CEOs in the corner back there. Back in the early days. So playing together helps build teams. The other thing we would do is help foster the building of relationships between members of the team, learning what unique skills or interests people have on the teams. And what we would do is, like, once a month, we'd leave at a 4 o'clock 4 o'clock once a month, and we'd go do something. So we had an engineer that was into Frisbee golf. So we had a Frisbee golf tournament, you know, opt-in for anyone who wanted to participate. We also hired a juggler at one point, software engineer who also juggles, so we had that opportunity to kind of learn from each other. I think a lot of these things are like keystone habits. You build the relationships, and then everything else comes easier. So we also have, even to this day, some different competitions in team spaces. There was a holiday competition to decorate your seating area. And so each team was able to do whatever they want. This team interpreted holiday very broadly and built a Chicago-style hot dog stand in their team area. And the word spread fast, and they had a long line with different people coming through the building. But the cool thing is like the wild freedom brought out all this creativity. There's another team, you know, again, this is a decorate your team area competition. This team decided to put on a play. So, you know, we make property management software, so they put on a play of Ebenezer Scrooge, you know, property management style. And, you know, stuff like this happened right after. After they performed their play, you know, they're jumping up and down, screaming. They're so happy that they had accomplished that. And it was very significant for me because they, you know, like most teams, you know, conflict is natural on a team. They had gone through some hard times. But through these conditions of play, you know, something like that happened. And it was just really, really cool to see that. So, you know, we also do annual overnight tech retreats. As you can see, this was from a rafting trip. You can notice somebody is headfirst in the water there. He did survive. But we do have this custom. We had it in early days of Expert City too, of doing an annual tech retreat. We also take our product management. You know, one of the things is that business people and engineers work together on a daily basis from the Agile Manifesto principles. So we are always together. We sit together with our business folks, and we also play together at our annual tech retreats. So this kind of team building helps strengthen the relationship across a lot of the teams. You know each other, you know, better. You work better together. Sharing adventure builds teams. We took a tech retreat recently to Big Sur, and so people could opt into a variety of different activities. This team went hiking together. Also, we went to Disneyland, and you know, team building accelerated by screaming. I'm in the lower right-hand corner there screaming, and there's an engineer next to me named Ka Zong, and he's a web operations engineer. And let me tell you, it was highly efficient, not to mention terrifying and fun, to scream at the top of my lungs over and over with him as we dropped on the Hollywood Tower of Terror vertically, and we were like tight ever since. You know, so it's like kind of shared experiences like that help build teams. You know, it's relationship building. Learning together at conventions build teams where we value education, and we like learning together. And you can see there's John Yoder and Brynja are learning at a convention together, and we also would take the time, also inspired by that terror episode, we went on that Ferris wheel together. And here you have people from UX, you have product owners, you have engineers, you have some Agile coaches, all together having a shared experience to build their relationships. And then when they get back to work the next week, barriers are lowered. These are like keystone habits. They lead to other good things. You know, if you start to exercise, maybe your diet is better. You start to eat healthier food. I view it like that. We also do some other events with families, and we try to remember the fun that we have. And we have in our office, we have photos that we put up of times together, just to remember stuff like that. We also do hack days, 24-hour hack days twice a year, and we take team photos there. And so basically, these are just they're modeled after Atlassian's Ship It days. So it's a quick burst of innovation. It's only 24 hours. Nobody has to stay overnight, but it's 2 o'clock on a Thursday to 2 o'clock on a Friday, plus some voting. And we have goofy traveling trophies that pass from person to person, and people have the opportunity to work on anything that they want. So it's a good opportunity for people across the whole company to know each other and build relationships. We had a group, lower left corner there, they made a board game for one of our products. So they got together people from different departments. We have a AppFolio internal kind of, what is that, Stack Overflow type account where we can use that. Somebody made an indicator of when the build is red or green for one of our products. And in the lower right corner, even hanging in one of our offices when people do credit card or ACH transactions in our software, it lights up on a screen. So we also do things like take the time to celebrate shared moments together, like the first check that we were able to print out of AppFolio Property Manager. We got together, took a photo. It was engineer Kamran, who was in Chicago at the time, was holding up the very first check. So we really try to deliberately remember and take the time to celebrate the successes that we have. And that, is good for team building. The first rental application that was processed through AppFolio Property Manager, the team is so proud they printed it out, they signed their names. It's taking the moments to really celebrate. We have a gong, and behind them you can see that there's a gong. So we'll bang the gong for significant achievements or milestones or team, things that the teams are really proud of, and everybody can hear it because it's a gong. And they're doing CAM for Common Area Maintenance project that they worked on. But so we celebrate those moments. Also, we have a tradition from that early rafting photo I was talking about before. We went whitewater rafting on the Kern River. Our CEO made an oar in the lower picture. I believe he made it in his garage. Everybody that was in the company signed the oar. So it was became a symbol in our company. And when one of our founders passed the oar to the CEO that he was going to be in charge of the company, he did it with that oar. So we went public in June and we signed the oar in the upper right corner. And so we have a tradition of kind of remembering the times and symbols of the people that were there and the achievements that we have. So celebrating the successes is important to us. So now I'm going to segue into talking about our Agile, but from the lens of the Agile coach. And one thing, as an Agile coach, I've been an Agile coach for a while and kind of converted over the years from a Scrum Master to Agile coach. I'll explain what that is. And it's instructive of some of the things that we do. So we've, had a lot of growth over the years, 14-ish teams now, more than 500 in the company, multiple locations. So the teams are organized into groups. We call them colleges, kind of inspired by Spotify's tribe concepts. But we do have an academic approach, and we name our colleges for scientists. The people that are in the teams determine the names of their colleges. And they also determine the names for their teams. And just from the past, we've had kind of a nerdy twist on band names. So we've got the Hex Pistols and Def Leppard, for example. So teams decide their names and sometimes, break that convention, and that's fine. It's the people together. We also sit, again, just like our roots in the startup, trying to break down the cubicle walls so we could all be together. The cross-functional teams all sit and stand together because we have the movable desks, which is quite nice. But it's really great that the business people and the engineers all sit together. Everybody can participate in discussions. You can overhear things. We had a visit from Woody Zuhl to talk about mob programming in the past, and we'll see some big screens in some of the team areas so they can collaborate together on a big screen. We'll have, boards. For example, there's Scott back there with a team at a stand-up talking about the boards. And we also have, I wanted to point this out because I was walking through our buildings and thinking to myself, we do have a no-door policy, and this is also something that, you've heard of open-door policies. Oh, come see me anytime. I have an open-door policy. But these VPs at the top here, Eirik and Jerry, have no-door policies. They sit with the teams, very accessible to everyone, as well as our, general manager of my case, Jason, at the bottom there. He's, in the team areas, and I think that's just really cool. So what does an Agile coach do? So there's a woman named Lisa Atkins. She works also with Michael Spade. They have this group called the Agile Coaching Institute. I went to one of their training sessions when I was a Scrum Master and learned about Agile coaching, it really resonated with me and influenced how I showed up going forward at my job. Because as the years went on, again, we grew our Agile organically. We started with one team, now, 14-ish teams. But the practices that we do vary amongst the teams. We've always had retrospectives amongst all the teams. We teach and coach to the Agile Manifesto principles, which I'll show you in a little while. But some teams follow more of a Kanban style, some more of a Scrum style, so it didn't seem to make sense to have a title just tied only to Scrum. Anyway, so Agile coaches teach and mentor about Agile and Lean subject matter at the top. We also coach and facilitate, and I'll show some specific examples. It also kind of gives you an idea of the types of team building that we have. Coaches might focus on the technical aspects, like spreading practices like TDD and other things like those, some of those pivotal consultants that I was talking about at the beginning, or might focus on helping product management groups and businesses in Lean startup. Also transformation mastery. You'll find a lot of people converting from waterfall to something else more agile, or transformation in the case of, like, our transformation is more like maybe we hire someone from and they have a tradition that's different from Agile practices, and so we'll work with them individually in the new environment. So Agile coaches teach and mentor on Agile and Lean best practices. We also coach. I'll explain what that is, and we also facilitate different things like retrospectives. And so we also learned throughout the years, this is something we drew on a whiteboard, our Agile coaching group, is it's a balance between focusing on people, focusing on the team, and focusing on the work. So I'll tell some examples of that. So we might focus on the individual. There's a coaching practice called coactive coaching that I'm trained in. And so I might have coaching conversations with certain individuals who opt in. We'll go for a walk, and instead of giving people advice on exactly what to do, I'm trained in a way that I can engage with them, ask powerful questions to help further their ideas so they decide something that they want to do or something that they want to be. So there's some individual coaching that Agile coaches do. We also onboard new engineers and quality assurance, UX, and we have an internal engineering academy at AppFolio, and it's not just Agile coaches that do it. There's a lot of different engineers that teach in our academy. We might have classroom style training. There's Paul's teaching in story splitting, elephant carpaccio exercise. There's a group in the lower right doing an interactive activity with the Agile Manifesto, try to understand the Agile principles and practices. And so as Agile coaches, we help integrate new team members across the organization. We participate in training sessions and teaching in the engineering academy. And so, we have all these teams, and so what does that look like and how do they differ? So one of the things that we do is that we'll expose people to, and they'll interact with these principles from the Agile Manifesto. We have interactive, after someone's at AppFolio for about a month in the engineering team, they can participate in an interactive activity in which they'll be exposed to these principles of the Agile Manifesto, and they'll connect them to live examples that they've seen in AppFolio. And so we'll have discussions about what it looks like to be Agile. There's Agile coaches work in those different clusters of teams. So different practices have emerged. Like I said, some teams are more Kanban, some are more Scrum. There's a variety of practices. Teams have autonomy and ownership over how they do their work for the most part. And so the Agile coaches working with those teams will help onboard the team members in those local contexts. Whether they use Pivotal Tracker, which is a tool that we might have some stories in, or whether they use visual boards. If they're all in person, some teams might use Lean Kit. So the Agile coaches with those teams will teach the local customers, how they have their stand-ups, et cetera. So Agile coaches also help teams visualize the work that they do. And you'll see some boards here about visualizing the workflow as a strategy for self-organization and efficiency, also leading to really effective, if you ever have a stand-up, raise your hand if you've had a stand-up meeting before and people are like, I don't know what I'm going to do today. Anybody experienced that before? What we've found, I think through, the great work that Scott has done is that if we help the teams visualize their workflow, have the workflow as an anchor in the stand-up meeting, we don't have the stand-up centering around, this is me and the work that I'm going to do today. It's more, working from right to left on the board. This is where I'm at, and we talk to the work and the workflow. And it's also, we found a really good way to help teams be self-running. So we focus on that workflow. If we only focused on the workflow and neglected the team and the individual, we'd have other problems. Like I said, it's that balance between the work, the team, and the individual. So, Kanban. Agile coaches also work to ensure alignment between groups. And we have, different high-level epics. Well, what does it mean to be done with that particular thing? Are we all on the same page about that? What's going on now, which is finished, but we work on a lot of alignment between groups, making sure we're all on the same page with what it means for something to be done. We also do a variety of things to foster, what I call teaming or reteaming. When we add, we have a lot of growth. We add new people to the scene. Well, where do they fit in? If you have a team, let's say, 8 to 9 people, and then a new person comes, and then one person's out, so you have like a new unit as a team. So we do special deliberate activities to help people gel. So we'll do all that fun stuff like the monthly events or do, go off site or whatnot like the previous slides, but we'll also do some deliberate activities like this Marketplace of Skills comes from Lisa Atkins' book as well. So how can we help people get to know each other as fast as possible so then everything else comes easier? So I love this activity. In fact, I'm doing it with the team tomorrow because a tech support team, they have two new team members. So they asked, can you help do some of these activities? And this Market of Skills is it's an hour, and you make a poster, you talk about, these are the skills I bring to the team. These are some other skills. Maybe it's not relevant to software development, but I want you to know, and this is what I want to learn. And then, so there's an example of a poster that I did in the past, but everybody presents their posters, and while you're presenting your poster, everybody else has things that they listen for. Do they have a skill that they didn't mention? You can put it on a post-it note. Do you want to offer to help them learn that new thing? You can put it on a post-it note. So it helps people make connections in an hour. It also helps raise respect. I remember with one team, there was a new person that joined, and there was an engineer, kind of a tough crowd. You really had to earn his respect. When he learned that this new guy could take apart a motorcycle and put it back together, the respect just went through the roof. He couldn't do that. It was like, but to leave that by chance, you might never know that this guy could do that, or it might take a year. So how can we accelerate the gelling of a team as efficiently as possible? So coach's job, help the teams gel as quickly as possible. So that's one of the things. We also might do journey lines. Now all these examples I'm giving you might not necessarily do all of them, but they're part of our bag of tricks. Talking about where we've been, different experiences in our lives can help bring us together. And people choose the level of detail that they're comfortable following. It's another thing from Lisa Atkins and Michael Spade. So you can see this person's poster has, several different ups and downs, and she's pretty much telling her story. This is my path. This is what I want you to know about myself, as we work together. And, structured activities like this I think are good because we might not want to just suddenly say, hey, did you know that I have a master's in teaching English? You might not have that opportunity, so you might want people to know things. We also do things so these last few examples are about sharing stuff about us as individuals. We'll go on a hike. This is a team I took on a hike to get together and know each other better. This is at Inspiration Point. At the bottom of the trail, people partnered up. And it was, okay, hike up the mountain together and share a peak experience from your life. Something that happened in your life, something that you were a part of that you're really proud of or was really significant to you. So they paired up, went up the mountain. At the top, one guy had a backpack full of breakfast burritos. So he had breakfast burritos. Another person had a backpack of waters. You don't want to get hungry when you're hiking. So we were at the top, passed out the breakfast burritos, and then each partner told the other person's story. So I told, Amy's story about how she was really proud to be the captain of her high school soccer team, and they went to the state meet, and this is why it was important to her. And so as everybody told their stories, we listened for the values that are present, and then we get to learn kind of what's important to each other as a team. So, again, these are optional activities that we might choose to do. You can do it at Elwood too, where it's relatively flat. Another thing, with a tech support team, they're very into StrengthsFinder. Have any of you read this book about strengths? And so the team wanted to, let's read this book, let's do the test and see what it says about what our strengths are, and then let's share it with the group and talk about, well, what's true about this for me, or what's not true? And it's another way to kind of get to know each other. Intentional team design. So those activities, we're getting to know each other as individuals. Some other things that we offer as Agile coaches is focusing on kind of intentional team design. This comes from a relationship systems coaching field called ORSC, Organizational Relationship Systems Coaching. There's a group up north called CRR Global. And so we're together as a team. We can intentionally design how we want to be together as a team. What kind of atmosphere do we want to create as a team? What would help us flourish? What kind of support do we need to help us flourish? And, so we come up with these team alliances. We also talk about how conflict is natural in a team. It's an indication that things might want to change or something wants to emerge. But how do we want to be with each other if things get difficult? We can talk about that in advance. Kind of raises the positivity for when a conflict might happen. So you might learn about, coworker Sue that, hey, if you ever want to talk to me about something, maybe have a difficult conversation, you could learn that Sue wants to go outside for a walk, or that this person wants to go to the coffee shop, or that this person, wants to do it, over in that particular room. You can learn about individual preferences. And so we can then later look at these again, how is it going, and we can intentionally design how we want to be together as a team. Another really important thing, and I've talked about this already, is retrospectives. This is a retrospective with a team at Elwood, and so we'll do these off-site, where the team wants to. But we conduct a lot of retrospectives and teach others to do it. As we get more and more teams, we teach others to step up and do these practices and keep them going. So we reflect. Some teams reflect at the end of a sprint or at a particular time-based cadence, or they might reflect after a project is done or a certain story is done. Pretty much any time. We had a group, a group of mentors reflect together that they were mentoring interns. So what was that like? What kind of improvements do we want to our intern program next year? So we draw different lines for retrospectives. And we share the learnings, and the coaches and will teach the people that run the retrospectives to, all right, don't forget what you said you wanted, and bring it up later. Kind of hold that accountability that the team wants. And find at least one thing that you want to, work on for the next time period, whether it's doing more of something that worked really well or making specific changes. So we're also skilled in group dynamics to facilitate different types of conversations. When you're working with product development, you might diverge and have different opinions about things that need to be built, and things take time to converge at points. So we're trained in facilitation. There's a great group in San Francisco called Community at Work. They have a great facilitation course that some of us have taken about fostering the group dynamics during decision making. We also do things with, this is a group doing a constellation exercise where they have something in the middle of the room, and you'll orient your body by walking for how you feel about the thing. Like, for example, we'll start with some warm-ups, like to get to know the people in the room. Like, for example, I'm a morning person. If that resonates with you, you'll walk towards the object. If not, you'll walk backwards and anyone can kind of debrief. So, we learn different facilitation techniques for groups. So this is an offsite that we had of one on request from a group. So Agile coaches will do that. We also, it's again with the facilitation, we'll facilitate brainstorming. Last 6 months we facilitated brainstorming in an hour for 120 people. So how is that done in all the different rooms at a time? So we do a lot of facilitation. So we do that on our hack days. Like I was saying before, we do the hack days to stimulate innovation. We build really cool things for our customers, might get integrated into the product or internal tools, but we help foster those kind of uncommon interactions among the people that work in the building. So helping people build these relationships with brainstorming and also forming groups for hack day. So someone might come to a hack day not sure what they're going to want to make, and we do these different marketplace activities where people can find their groups. So we also do things, beyond product development, beyond engineering. It seems to be more and more kind of pull for our services. An Agile coach recently did a retrospective for a group that put on our customer convention. So we also do some internal consulting. And yeah, I think that's about it. I'm happy to field any questions. 45 minutes. Oh, come on. One question.
This one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of books which are all really interesting. If there's like a specific pain point, is there like a Stack Overflow for Agile coaching, or like some sort of resource to find specific exercises?
So the question was, is there a place to go to share information about Agile coaching or get answers for sticky situations? I think there's a variety of places, and I think others can kind of chime in here. There's a great place for retrospectives called RetroMat, and there's different activities on RetroMat. I know there's like a Kanban development list, there's a Scrum email list. Help me out if you guys know of other things. There's probably something on Stack Overflow for questions. Google knows all, maybe. But I like the book Coaching Agile Teams, Lisa Atkins, and also that RetroMat book. There's another really cool website called Tasty Cupcakes. It has a lot of games, so people contribute to it. Yeah.
There's also a lot of YouTube for short presentations. If you learn particular technique or particular problem point, there's some reviews there. Yeah, sometimes easier than using the book.
Okay, see how it's actually done.
Yeah.
In regards to conflict protocols, what's your favorite way to resolve an issue?
It's my favorite way to resolve an issue.
Yeah,
I guess
on that board I saw.
Yeah. So we invite the teams to share how they like to be together in conflict. I mean, I guess it kind of depends on what it is. A lot of the times if someone comes to me and they have an issue with another person, I'll talk with them about it and kind of listen. One of the things that I offer is a coaching conversation. Would you like coaching on it? I think a lot of the times people have the answers and know what to do, and when you engage with them in questions as opposed to giving advice, they really can kind of own the solution and maybe decide that they themselves want to. I could say, oh, you might want to talk to them about it, but if they engage in a coaching conversation with me, maybe they would decide themselves something that would be the best for them, and then we talk about it later. So coaching comes in real handy for that. But it's an explicit conversation. We, talk about that, hold confidentiality. Oh, cool.
Do you have any advice for Agile coaching before? It seems like you have some people that are remote. for remote teams or fully distributed teams?
So Agile coaching, so my experience is with kind of hybrid teams. We'll have local and then maybe we'll have a few people that are remote, or we have a convention if you're not feeling well, maybe you'll work from home that day. But we do, you know, for stand-ups and for other team events, people will come in on video. It really, really brings people in the room to be all together. So we'll do that, and then, you know, we'll use electronic tracking system. You know, it's hard to have remote people see some of the physical boards, so we'll use electronic systems for people on remote teams. And we'll, you know, another thing is we'll take a laptop and we'll have someone on there on video, whether it's GoToMeeting or something else. Like, you can do activities like that constellation if somebody is a proxy and holds the person on a laptop. So we'll bring people.
Yeah.
You know, that brainstorming for 120 people or whatever, people are carried on laptops. You know, it's pretty fun, so they could really try to experience it. And, you know, so it's in, as much as possible, if we can kind of bring them in the room, and the video is the best.
I guess one thing important to point out there, we don't have any fully remote teams.
That's
We're all based here. There might be 1 or 2 people remote, but we don't have offshore teams.
I think we
And
have
that's very
5 out of
good.
100, like 5 out of 100 people are remote. Yeah, we deliberately built the co-located team. Yeah, that's a unique thing, Darren.
What's the most interesting conflict protocol you had a team adopt? I mean, has a team done something like, if we decide that a certain person is just not really that great for the team, can we vote him off the island, so to speak?
Never experienced that before. It's more like coming up with preferences of you know, how we want to be together. And I haven't had many really extreme examples. But.
So what would be like a typical one that's broadly adopted?
Well, so they're all specific to the particular teams. And the other teams don't necessarily know about them because it's really for that particular team. You know, like if for some reason maybe I say something that insults you or offends you, please talk with me about it as soon as possible, as opposed to waiting a week. You know, there's one example.
Cool, thank you.
And a few things we kind of enforce, but enforced by the community, like a test-driven development or high-test coverage. That's everybody kind of like adopt to and believe it. And so all the engineers come on board with that. They understand that test coverage is very important. And they also try to do smaller story, don't try to attack a larger story. That's kind of like a very, all team, doesn't matter which practice you do.
Mm-hmm.
Something you should understand.
Well, you mentioned hack days and brainstorming sessions. Do you do anything else to foster creativity among the teams or in general?
Well, teams are posed with problems to solve, so they, you know, figure out how they want to work together and devise solutions, maybe prototype something, show it to customers. We do a lot of that. You know, try to lower the barriers to get to the customers, you know, and have, you know, different ideas about, you know, how can we make if you have a prototype, making it as easy as possible to put it in front of a customer. So there's a lot of prototyping and freedom to devise different creative solutions, you know, all the time. Those are just, it's like the hack day is just a special kind of change in energy where you don't work on something that's on the regular list. You can work on something completely different. So it's kind of a jolt of something different. Yeah.
I have a question about scaling. You talked about the pair programming as being something where you know, maybe not you specifically, but tried to force something and it was like, oh. So as you scaled, what were the big lessons? You have 14 different teams working independently, different ways of scrumming or agiling. Can you talk about scale?
I think educating on best practices and inviting people to try them. You'll see, like if you walked in our environment today, you see a lot of pairing going on, maybe some people working in groups. We have, you know, we use different like Slack channels where people self-organize and share different practices. we anchor together through our engineering academy. We offer, trainings and other things, not only for new employees, but others find out about them and can join in. So there's more and more kind of alignment activities. Jerry was talking about working in very small stories, very small pieces that we can create and get out to the customers quickly. So there are different best practices that we try to get together through the engineering academy in other ways. So we spread things through pairing. We have tech talks where teams will show what they did or talk about something that worked pretty well in their teams. We also share, we have something called Today We Learned. If a team made a mistake or learned a lesson, something like a hard lesson, we have, we share those learnings together. We have a Slack channel for that. People will email, people give a talk about, today we learned. And, maybe there was a production error and how they solved it.
That's
So-
across those 14 different teams?
Across the teams.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have, the teams work in their individual processes, then we have different, we use Slack for different cross-team asynchronous communication. We have email, we have tech meetings. We also have demos. We have tech demos once a month where people will give short talks, like 15 minutes, to share stuff across teams.
Talk about,
No, sorry.
you talk about the process, not forcing the pairing. How do you apply that when starting a brand new team, especially if people are used to the waterfall way? So you give them a framework, hey, we recommend you work this way, or hey, this is the way we're gonna try for 2 weeks, a month, and you guys have to do it this way. How to approach that?
Yeah, how to approach that. So our more common case would be to integrate, someone onto an existing team and someone else goes elsewhere. So there's already kind of a beginning there. There's already some team conventions, and then it's about integrating the people into the existing team. So we move people from team to team a lot. It's more of a kind of a dynamic re-teaming. We might have a case where we have a brand new team, maybe in the summer, working together, might have a guideline of how they might start, and through coaching and support, kind of help them along. So it's kind of more like that. You have a team that's already doing stuff, somebody else kind of comes in, so there's a beginning there, and then they adjust and change through reflection, through retrospectives.
We also have a mentor system. So whenever
Yeah,
you
mentoring.
come, you will assign a mentor for the first 3 months. So the mentor should be mindful, actually involve you on the pairing, do things together. So
Yeah, so every new engineer that starts QA, all the roles have a mentor, certain helping set up the dev environment, certain technical practices and conventions that we have, and we provide support for mentors, new mentors and others.
Is the mentor on the team with the person, or is it someone
Yeah,
comes and checks
it's their
in,
first
or-
pair.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're on the team, kind of gradually fade out, and then people that come in, maybe they know Java and they're learning Rails. We do Rails development, so they'll, the mentor will help work with the new person. Everybody doesn't go through like a standard canned training. It's customized for that person and where they've been and, what their experience level is. Phil.
So my question is a perfect follow-on to this.
Okay.
Just for benefit of people who don't know me, because you know this, I'm a professor at UCSB, but I did a 10 to 12 week sort of internship at AppFolio, and I experienced this kind of onboarding, and it was exactly as Heidi just explained. I learned AppFolio's culture, its way of doing things, and the particular teams that I was on 2 different teams, and they did most things the same way, but a few things differently. And I learned that because I was on a team with people who were experienced, but I learned from these experienced people. That sets up my question.
Okay.
I'm now starting my own Agile team, and using the best practices I learned in AppFolio. And right now it's with one other person. And that's great, because I can that person is a student, and I can share with that person all the great things I learned, and we're sort of adopting each practice one at a time. The next quarter, I'm teaching a class where I will have a team of 8 to 10 all at once. Click my fingers, and there's 8 to 10 people, and I want to make them great, wonderfully functional Agile team. So I'm wondering, back in the day, back when you were just starting AppFolio, and everything was brand new, and if I understood you correctly, the Agile and the XP was kind of a new. It wasn't something that was exactly the same as what you had done at Expert City / Citrix. What was it like at the very beginning to try to get that going when you didn't have role models? I guess you had the Pivotal folks. Was that part of it, or?
Yeah, we had the 2 consultants from Pivotal, and we started with Scrum. We used the Scrum guide, and it was more like, all right, let's try this. This is an agreement as a team about what we want to try.
Right.
But it was, we did want to do the pairing and the technical practices. It was part of the birth of the company. It came with our founders. I mean, Jerry or Eirik started before me. They might remember more specifics than that. But they decided, and they were exposed to, there was a book by Ken Schwaber on Scrum from many years ago. It's a black book. Sitting in an open work environment. We were in the incubator, and they were taking down the walls and the cubes because of the open environment. Like, they read and learned about best practices, and as they started the company, I think the leaders were really bought into doing it, and this is where we're going to start.
Right.
And then we got, I think we got scared, like, pairing, we believe in it so strongly, don't let it break down, but then, through the years, it's kind of like, take the concept from open space, you invite people to do stuff.
Right.
Like, hey, look at this thing, and these are the benefits and all of this. I invite you to try it. Something like that. But I think, coming to an agreement with those people about, where to start.
Right. That actually is very helpful.
Yeah?
There may not have seemed like there was a lot of specifics there, but I got a lot out of that,
Oh,
about what
cool.
I can specifically do and try. So thank you.
I think one thing that it was the theme here, that you always have experienced people showing other people how to do it.
Right.
And what you mentioned with the Pivotal people was essential to that. In the beginning, none of us had done it.
Right.
And actually hiring those consultants, they were experienced people.
Right.
Sure, it was a big investment to hire these expensive consulting units, but it really paid off because you basically could throw money at getting someone experienced in that showed you how it works in practice. You can read about it as much as you want, but until you see it work in practice, it's very hard to sort of grasp those concepts. And that was our way of bootstrapping it. Hiring consultants that were experts on this Agile software, Scrum, and XP thing. And we had them with us for a while, and when we learned everything they could teach us, they sailed off, and we continued that.
And they sailed off very naturally. I don't even remember when it was, but they faded out. And I think one of the keys was they weren't just in there giving us a 2-day workshop, or a 10-day workshop or whatever. They were there.
They worked with us for half a year or so.
Right.
Yeah.
They were living with you and modeling the
Oh yeah, they
process.
were coding. I mean, they were building.
One thing very important, that they are not just like Agile consultants.
Right.
They are software developers practice Agile.
Right.
So
right.
we work together, we build software together.
Yes.
We learn through our working. Essentially, it's not just read books
Right.
or
Right.
constantly bomb us with concept. Essentially, yeah, this works seems better than before.
Yes.
Right, and it's a very natural adoption.
And they probably had more credibility because they were developing your product along with you,
Yeah.
rather than telling you how to do your job.
Essentially, yes.
They had,
together.
yeah.
We all code together.
yeah, they were with the game.
That's very it's even so take about us about 6 months.
Right.
So transform the mind is sometimes hard, right? So even Agile, one thing is what is design, what is auto design? That's a concept. It's really, really hard to realize. So when you run the problem, you always say, you don't feel comfortable if you don't have design, but precisely if you design, your cycle is too long. Took a while.
Cool. Well, thank you very much.